I'm Doug Jackson. I'm the Business Analysis Practice Manager, and I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy day and lunch hour to attend the second state of the practice, this one centered on business analysis. I will try and keep it to 55 minutes past the hour, but I will say afterward that folks need to get back to their daily routine. I understand in other meetings, but I'll try and stick around for any questions that we have. All right, so with that in mind, I will kick things off. First of all, most of these the state of the practices are kind of set up in a similar fashion, and they have a standard table of contents, and we'll walk through. If you had attended Chris Heath yesterday, you'll see that it is very similar in nature to what he had presented. And just to give you a brief view of the table of contents, what we're going to be covering through is an idea of the practice at a glance. So an idea of the talent and where we are at a very high level. We're going to talk a little bit about the position and the posture of the business analysis practice, kind of how we are against our competitors, some of the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, and we'll touch on tools a little bit. Next, we'll visit key ongoing customer-facing activities, which include sales support for the different types of markets that we service. And then next will be key ongoing internal programs, which includes education and development, as well as a review of the annual timeline. And finally, we'll finish with risks and mitigations. The colors you see to the left really kind of show what us in the practice feel are a level of confidence that we have in these different areas. And really, if you were to have one encapsulation for the way we see the state of the practice, is that we really see a fantastic amount of opportunity associated with business analysis. But with any of those types of opportunities, there are certain types of risks and concerns that we have that we really need to stay on in order to be able to realize all the value that is out there in the marketplace. So that's where you see the yellow. If you have any questions, again, raise some hands, and we'll try to stop throughout. Carol Drew, one of the people that is involved with our practice in the leadership role, that kind of suggested a good starting point for this presentation to be just a quick couple definitions. The first one really is about requirements. And for those who are taking the certification test, I would not use this as authoritative, but the idea of a requirement is really just either an unmet or an ongoing need, not necessarily a business need or a technical need or an acquisition need or a strategic need, although it could be all of those things. But it really is just that. And the idea of a requirement then is quite a broad thing in the way that we interpret it and see it in the marketplace. The second thing is this idea of what business analysis is. And again, this would not be something that you would see in a text necessarily, but really it is the ability for us to elicit, to gain consensus around and understand, to analyze, to communicate, and ultimately make sure that the solution reflects that particular requirement or business need. So you can see that it is a very broad term of both business analysis and requirements. And the trick that we have that's in the marketplace, or that we have as a value proposition in the marketplace that we think makes us quite a bit better, is that as organizations become increasingly complex, starting the millions to billions, the idea of managing all of these types of activities in a cohesive, managed way becomes extraordinarily difficult. And there are only a very few companies that have what we feel is the right formula for success. And luckily, we feel at RG that we do have that. So I'm hoping to be able to go through that and provide that information to you guys as well. All right. So going through, I think I touched on that particular piece. The practice at a glance. First of all, the people in the practice are Carol Drew, Sandy Sears, and myself. Carol has been with DEA, which is an acquisition made by RG, as I have been for a number of years. Sandy's just joining us from one of our clients, Mass Mutual, and we're excited that I have two very, very high quality calibered professionals helping out in practice. They've been immensely helpful. Our business analysis mission is pretty straightforward. It is to provide a complete, robust, repeatable, and teachable approach to help our clients execute organizational changes effectively and efficiently. A lot there in terms of the pieces, but the words are are picked out with a specific purpose. And that is the fact that a lot of people can handle requirements in a very isolated way. But it takes a methodology and good, strong competency to be able to deliver this particular type of mission. And that's what we're hoping within the business analysis group to be able to put together for the overall organization. A quick look at the talent matrix, and we'll go into that in a little bit more in a second. Let's get past this. But one other piece is our community in general. We're very, very fortunate to have about 45 or more RGers who have expressed interest in business analysis, and we hope that that keeps growing. We have about a little over 25 who are IIBA members. IIBA is the International Institute for Business Analysis, and that kind of shows a concrete commitment to the business analysis discipline and profession. And we have 2 certified business analysis professionals. What you'll see at the upper left-hand corner is a yellow dot, and it sort of centers around that idea of 2. We really do want to be able to grow our certification within the organization. So we have more certified business analysis professionals at some degree, whether they're by the IIBA, the PMI, or other organization, but have the sense of this discipline and what business analysis really means within our organization. And that's a good segue to the second piece of this. We have, we'll look at the talent matrix in a little bit more detail here. If you had attended yesterday's presentation, these are all pretty much the same. What we did is we had everybody do a self-assessment of their perceived skills that align to the different types of services that we have within the different practices. And you can see within the business analysis, we have several different services. In fact, actually probably a little too many services that are set up around down here in the center. And the feedback for the different areas, you can see varies. At an EB, the business analysis competency development, which is a fairly highly skilled type of service to deliver, is relatively low, while we see the requirements to definition and management to be quite high. Those numbers are because probably most of us have done requirements, definition, and management at some point in our career, so we feel like we're pretty comfortable in being able to execute that. However, one of the things that we want to take on as a challenge with our practice is to make sure that requirements, definition, and management and our other types of services we offer are done the RG way. And there's a very, very important reason why we want that. Because if we're dealing with very complex organizations with very complex problems, it's very important for all of our practitioners to have a similar way by which they execute business analysis and manage requirements information. That's the thing that differentiates us from our competitors. So what we're looking to do with our talent is we'll probably re-baseline that a little bit by updating our service set so it's a bit more explicit and oriented around the types of services that RG is providing moving forward. And then also up that number a little bit so that we can get our 7 to 10 range up by about 10 to 15 folks, and that we can make sure that we don't lose any people because they'll re-understand the types of competencies required for us to do business analysis and manage requirements in the same fashion that others do at RG. Before I go further on that, quite a bit of information right off the bat. Lindsay, is there any questions about those subjects before we move on?
I haven't had any questions come through just yet.
All right. Well,
I think we're good.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit onto the market analysis part of the presentation. As we all know, there are 3 different areas that RG serves: defense, civil, and commercial. And emerging markets also embedded in the civil category. And I just wanted to give a top-level analysis about where we stand with all of those 3 segments, and then we'll go into them in a little bit more depth in a second. In defense, really, there's strong growth potential there, and what we're really looking for is opportunities to demonstrate our value in practice. In civil, we have solid past performance that we've been able to demonstrate over the past year, but what we're really working in here is to be able to improve the measurement of our value, to be able to make sure that we have something that is a story to tell, along with the measures that back it up in a quantitative way. Commercial, which has traditionally been a strength of what business analysis has lived, we have very, very strong past performance. What we're working here to do is to be able to sharpen our focus around the chosen market targets in support of relevant RG solutions. So when we work in the insurance industry, which is the target market for commercial, we're wanting to make sure that what we're providing in terms of our services fits exactly what the commercial go-to-market strategy is. It is true that business analysis has kind of evolved more on the commercial side than it has on the federal side. And that's kind of a good thing for us at RG because we have a strong footprint in the federal defense markets, and we can bring that knowledge over in a way that demonstrates our skill and value. Before we leave this particular slide, there's 5 really key market or key trends that are affecting business analysis. The first one is that business analysis is focusing more on business and enterprise than just IT. And we've seen this in quite a bit in some of the different clients that we visited and some of the different prospects we're working with, is that there's a sense that, gosh, we're doing business analysis. We think pretty well for technical solutions that involve hardware or software, but we are just not getting good quality information from the business. They don't really seem to be able to give us what we need. And sometimes they just don't even know what they want. So this focus is moving more towards understanding the business part of business analysis and all the way up to the strategic analysis, which is the last bullet point here, at a very, very high level. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. There's more requirements clarity that needs to take place before acquisitions occur. For those who are not familiar with the acquisition process, it's something that governments do, and really, frankly, they've done in commercial industry as well. It's called by a different name. But what happens, of course, is we go out and we try and buy things that we think are going to be the panacea of all of our problems, without really knowing exactly what we want before we go out. So the trend is being able to get more clarity around that because the buying the solution is not a good long-term value for the organizations that adopt that strategy. So communicating clearly to them why it's very important to do requirements early, get them right and clear before an acquisition occurs is a trend that we want to capitalize on. The third one here is the idea of visualization of requirements. We work in a world where we use stop signs, other types of visual elements to get around. It's the way we think nowadays. Having a body of requirements that's 150 pages long to read is not the style by which we want to consume requirements. People don't have the attention span for it. And what that means is they don't really pay attention to the quality of the information inside. It can be very, very good, but of course if no one reads it, it doesn't really matter. So what we want to do is use visual techniques to help our communication, the clear understanding of what we really need, and be able to take that visualization and tell the people who are building out the solution exactly what is needed so that we are able to make sure that the outcomes really linked to the business needs. And that is a hallmark of our strategy and a trend that is happening in the marketplace. The integration of the business analyst and the business architect is also a growing area, and it's no coincidence that I'm following Chris's fine presentation yesterday, because really we see at RG a very, very strong link between business analysis and business architecture. And that's really part of the way we do the visualization and the management of requirements information. So for us, the idea of this integration and moving forward on it is great. In government, if you work in government, architecture is probably, because it's mandated, is something that we see a lot. It's not done quite as well as it should be, as Chris mentioned yesterday, but it is something that is mandated. In the commercial space, it's not even mandated. So in a way, the idea of business architecture is a little bit more primitive in some cases than in government. So that integration fits very, very well for us. And then I touched on strategic analysis. All right, unless there's other questions, I'm going to dig a little deeper into our market position. So I have a four-quadrant. Oh, yes. Lindsay?
No questions. I'm sorry. I was just confirming to go ahead.
Either I'm doing a great job or everybody's eating their lunch right now. So right now I have a kind of a four-quadrant picture, and I'm going to walk through that quickly for us to get an understanding as to what we're really trying to depict here, and then we'll overlay our competitive matrix against this. And what you'll see at the top is a high domain understanding, and that is whether it is in the insurance industry, knowing a lot about insurance itself, or whether I'm in the Department of Defense and understanding naval operations. That type of understanding about a function or a line of business is indicated at the top here. And of course, the opposite being low domain understanding. And then from left to right, what you see is a low business analysis proficiency and a high business analysis proficiency. And by that, we're looking for people who have both the competency and the best practice knowledge to be able to apply business analysis techniques effectively. And within there, you have 4 general quadrants. And I'm going to move from the lower left all the way through to the upper right. And the lower left, there's staff augmentation. These are people who typically got brought in. They really are just keyboard bodies to come in and do some work. They don't really have any good business analysis knowledge, and they don't really understand the area that they're working in. They're just in there doing the job. And they typically are a very low rate that are brought in. It comes as no surprise to anybody. What you see in the upper left is the idea of technical requirements writing. And we see this a lot in the marketplace, where we have the idea of people who are brought in because they happen to know a subject area really well. And the idea is, well, if we bring in Joe, and Joe really knows a lot about exactly what he needs to do, then he'll write requirements perfectly. We don't even have to work about learning anything because Joe knows the industry, and if he writes it down correctly, then it's going to be right. So we see a lot of that area that is in place, and it really runs contrary to what the business analysis practice that we do and preach here at RG works, although we run into that situation very frequently. At American Fidelity, we actually encountered that from the president of the company, who was saying, gosh, I wish you guys had more industry experience in insurance. We'd really like to have a SME to help us out there. And we, of course, see it in government in all sorts of places. Moving on to the lower right-hand side, there's this idea of business analysis practitioners. These are folks who come in who really do know business analysis well, but they really don't understand the area that they're working in because they don't have the ability to understand and consume exactly the types of work being done in the functional area that they're engaged in fast enough. And we see that happen a lot. And these are people who are just good at writing requirements and enlisting and facilitating, but they really can't understand exactly the business need and get deeply involved in that. Which leads to the upper right-hand quadrant, and that's the idea of enterprise business analysis. And these are folks who may not necessarily know the insurance industry, or they may not necessarily know a particular part of government well, but they have the tools in hand to be able to get the knowledge they need from the different domains that they're working in effectively and efficiently to be able to become experts to some degree. We do not want to be experts in the sense that we know it. We want to be experts enough to be able to get the quality requirements necessary for a good solution. And that's the upper quadrant in place. So really from an RG perspective, what we really want to see ourselves being, and our position in this area is in this area in red, where we do have business analysis practitioners that have good business analysis skills that we're working towards. But we do see a lot of focus in the enterprise business analysis space, where people are needing to have folks who are able to come in and perhaps have a bit of gray hair. That's why I dye my hair gray. And they are able to understand a little bit more about the enterprise very quickly so that they can provide solutions in a very fast way. So the position is really ideal for us because then with our approach, we're able to go into any situation, develop accurately requirements information efficiently and effectively, better than I think anybody else in the marketplace. And the result is really satisfied clients and stronger margin opportunities for the firm as a result of our efforts. If I had a sweet spot to put, it'd be right where the star is. That the reason why is that we would have a bit more knowledge about the area quickly to be able to put in place the right people at the right time, and then we're able to leverage people who are a little bit younger to be able to get this, to acquire the knowledge that they need to have to make things happen. So that's the spot that I would see us at. All right, unless there's questions, we have a green dot, and I think we feel very comfortable that we are getting to understand the spot that is best for us as a practice. Let's take a look at a little bit more at the idea of some of the different market or competitors who are in this market space. So if we go back to the idea of staff augmentation, this is pretty highly saturated. We see a lot of offshore folks who are coming in who are doing it. The rates are very, very low. It's not a place that really occupies both the principles that we have at RG, and it doesn't really help our brand of being the very best in our chosen markets. But you do see that happen a lot. That is in place. I don't spend too much time on that. In the idea of technical requirements writing, we see a lot of folks, especially in the government space, like Deloitte or MITRE or PwC, who have really had done previous work in a particular area, and they're brought in to write requirements for the effort that's that is underway. It's very quickly clear to a lot of us who've worked next to these folks that while they're very, very nice people and everything, they don't really understand the business analysis discipline well. And the techniques that are necessary to be able to get the right requirements information is tough to be able to get from folks like that. So it is good margins in some cases if you bring in somebody with some skills that we can take off. But the problem is that it, again, is not very good for our brand and being the best in our chosen marketplace. If we also look in the idea of business analysis practitioners, the lower right quadrant, we have what we call pure play vendors, people who do business analysis as their work effort. Folks like C-Level or IAG are good examples. And that's their job. They provide business analysis. They're very good at it. They're very active in the IAD, et cetera. And they work in this lower right quadrant to be able to provide that information. Usually it's a very prescriptive way. And for us at RG, because we support solutions and our practices and services are oriented around that, it is really an area that while we participate in that and we see opportunities that come out for business analysis work, we're able to differentiate ourselves because we're able to offer more value and more depth to the solutions that we put in place, as opposed to just saying we're going to develop your requirements. And that is something that we see as an advantage in the marketplace. In the quadrant that we are kind of wanting to occupy, we see this area of management analysis taking place. And these are the folks like McKinsey, you see Booz in this area, you see some of the folks from Accenture, et cetera, that are industry specialists. And they do provide some analysis work. We ran into this at Mass Mutual. We ran into it at a couple other places. Their price point is quite high. And it really helps us to be able to come in and execute, which is something we do better than they do. And we're able to do it at a price point that is comfortable for the types of margins that we're looking for in the marketplace. So it is a very nice position for us to be able to sit underneath folks like that. They're pretty highly priced in the marketplace. So the conclusion from this slide is that I think we are in a prime position to be able to leverage increasing value of business analysis and means to implement organizational change efficiently and effectively. And of course, we do that in support of the solutions that we offer at RG. However, the one thing that we do have to keep an eye out for is that there are several large vendors like IBM Global Services and NTT Data, Accenture, and other folks who are really beginning to wake up to the value that business analysis as a structured, managed discipline can provide in the marketplace. And as their activity and their capital investment increases, our luxury of being able to be in that spot with only a few different competitors that are, smaller players in niche areas may very well erode over the next 2 to 3 years or maybe over the next 5 years. So we feel pretty comfortable that the competitive analysis fits this profile. It's something we've seen for a while. Before we go any further, Lindsay, anybody have any questions about that? Seems like that one would be a relatively hot topic.
No questions yet.
All right. Well, I guess I'm doing pretty well there. So moving away from the competitive analysis, one of the things that was suggested that we walk through is just the power of our approach. Because I talk about this approach point, and for folks who have not been familiar with what we're doing in the business analysis practice, I thought an illustration might work very nicely to pull this together. And while I'm using VA as an example, we really have seen the same type of approach play out both at Mass Mutual as well as at American Fidelity as well as at GSA and other places. But in VA specifically, I'll walk through. When we were brought in at the beginning of 2014, what we did is we practiced what we preach. We actually did a technique, which is called process analysis. And you can see an example of it in the upper right. And you don't need to pay attention to the details there. But the idea is we went through and found all of the types of business requirements that are needed for change, things that they do well already at the VA, but problems that they have with the existing process, which represent business needs or requirements for change. So we did that in a very rapid way. That is a service that we offer. And from that, we were able to put together a sense of areas for improvement. For the folks that attended Chris's presentation yesterday, the pie chart should look relatively familiar. Standish benchmark for portfolio analysis brings up the idea of where generally projects are abandoned or challenged in some way. They run over budget or they run behind the timelines, or the quality of the solution just is not good enough and it needs to be fixed. or projects that are abandoned because they were not up to the quality necessary to meet the business stakeholder needs. You can see only a small sliver that are successful. We use that as a tool to be able to understand the value of change. And at VA, what we did is we looked at the focus areas of improvement and we compared them against the benchmark. You'll see at the top of these, without going into too much detail, is an amber line, which is the line we found out for VA, areas where they were significantly worse or had more challenges than the regular marketplace, which is indicated in blue, or the benchmarks, which are indicated in blue. And this came directly from the analysis that we did in the upper left-hand corner. So we're able to justify, in the context of the organization, where the risk areas lie and how putting in good business analysis processes and techniques can help alleviate the risk for these adverse project outcomes. I'm going to focus on the first one right up here, unclear objectives. We could do it for either. But you can see here that the spike is quite a bit higher for VA than normal. So the team, led by Alan Knapp, and it was a great team that is still working at VA, and we're hoping to stay on for a little while longer to help them out even further, jumped on this. And what we did is we put together and we focused on this area, which I've seen up here, for unclear outcomes. So what we did is we provided comprehensive, robust, repeatable, and teachable techniques, which is the comments that were in our mission. So we are practicing what we preach here too, to address their problem, which was unclear objectives. So how did we do it? Well, what we did is we applied on pilot projects the techniques that we have at RG, techniques that are available to all of us who work for RG as quick guides, which are located down here. And then we created reference materials, just a how-to guide on how to do it. And we also provided training to the VA practitioners through their RMK, or Requirements Management Knowledge Area practice training. The great thing about it is when we did this, we received strong feedback that helped them address the core problem, which was they were having unclear objectives. So as we go back to this portfolio analysis graphic that is in place, we're beginning to help this organization, and VA is a very big organization, so we're beginning as an operative term here, to address a key cause of their poor project outcomes, which was unclear objectives. So this type of approach, whether we do it here or at American Fidelity or at MassMutual or any other place that we work in, is an approach that we can actually do over and over again in a repeatable way, applying our techniques and our approach, which we consider to be the very best in the marketplace, although I'm somewhat biased, of course, to be able to solve any type of problem, whether it's NASA or whether it is a gaming company or whatever it might be. The same type of approach helps us get to the core problems and solve. But I thought that would be a useful visual to be able to kind of walk through how these types of concepts work as we apply it on different companies. Okay, Lindsay, unless you've got any other questions, I'll keep powering through.
I do have a question that came in.
Yeah.
So it seems like the government, specifically the Defense Division, is tailored to the technical requirements rating quadrant. So if we're in a prime position, if RG is in a prime position, what's preventing us from expanding in that sector?
I won't ask for names, but I'm kind of misting up in my eyes. If I can ask that person to hold on to that question, I will answer that specifically.
Okay.
I think that is absolutely true. And while it's not locked into just defense, it is an area that we do want to focus on as we move into that effort. So yes, the answer is absolutely true, and the answer is we definitely need to capitalize on that using an approach like this that helps us be able to pick at where those types of problems lie, because they are focusing too much on the technical side, and then showing how improvements can help change that for them. And we'll get into that in just a second here. But keep the questions coming. I'm not floating it off too much. So just a very quick point before we dig into it deeper is this idea that we are providing supports for different campaigns and pursuits. One area is managing for results, which is playing an active role in the shaping of a solution, getting past performance information, and being able to participate in business development meetings, and core systems transformation. And that is what we did at American Fidelity. It is a solution that is coming out, and we actually have 3 submissions on the subject, one with our client who was eager to present with us because they were so excited about the work that Mark Barnett and his fine team did down in Oklahoma City, that they want to present with us at the Building Business Capability and at some of the industry events. So we have submissions going in about that. And presenting with our client, as anybody on the phone might be able to understand, is very, very powerful in terms of getting reference accounts. So kudos to the team down there to make that happen. I won't go into the conferences too much, other than to say that we are actively involved in the conferences that are out in 2015, and we're using that really for two purposes: to be able to build a brand in the marketplace, and to be able to find talented individuals who want to join us in our ability to address some of the challenges that we face. We're also looking at it as a sales opportunity too. However, we seem to see less of those in some of the different business analysis focused areas, but in some of the areas like the IT Financial Managers Group and some of the different industry events, they may very well yield good sales opportunities for us. Okay, so I'm going to, and again, keeping the questioner's question in mind, if I can ask for one more slide before I get there. I'm going to go through the different verticals, and the first one is the one headed by Alan Carpenter, our esteemed executive director in that area. And what we are doing as current work is that we're positioning ourselves for growth where RG's approach to business analysis has been introduced. The examples there have been really VA, which I went into in a little bit. But what we're really trying to do is collaborate with our friends over in Performance Institute and with the Portfolio Management Group to be able to strengthen what we have initially put out. It's our architecture business analysis solution, and it's something that VA has picked up and called end-to-end requirements methodology, or E2ERM for short. That's government. We love our acronyms. So we're building on that. They saw so much value in that they really do see that there's an opportunity for supporting this managing for results initiative, which is really an end-to-end execution that is unified across the VA. And with all the different issues the VA is facing as an organization, they really need this. Now, the question is funding, and we're working through a lot of that, but it is an opportunity. It's very exciting for us to be able to differentiate ourselves and launch something off of the work we're doing now. We're also working with Jim Yu and his team over at the GSA for the integrated award environment. And if those who aren't comfortable with what IAE is, it really is an idea of a platform that allows for the development of apps or applications to be able to do all of the things that GSA provides to government: bids, loans, grants, etc. It's a huge, huge opportunity. And we're working with other RG practices, including EA, the Agile PM Group, Organizational Change Management, and really others, to provide this solution to an integrated shared service support. And the resulting success on that we see as being valuable for us moving forward, because shared services is something that seems to be quite active in both the federal marketplace as well as in private industry. So those are the areas of current work. We do see an opportunity, and the opportunity is listing into some of the different sessions that Alan is conducting with his team, is to be able to provide this capability to other agencies in support of existing RG solutions. And the idea is that we'll be participating on the update calls that are being provided on a, I think, monthly basis, Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but to find out where we might be able to provide value. And there's a FirstNet initiative that seems very exciting and very promising, and business analysis can play a role there by helping to provide some of our methodology as a backbone for some of the different solutions coming out. So that's an area in civil that we're working in. We're moving to the questioner's point, and that's in the area of Department of Defense. And she or he is spot on with the idea that there's too much of a focus in the technical side, and that's exactly what the Defense Logistics Agency is facing. And we worked under Jessica Wilson, who was very kind to be able to work and brainstorm different types of opportunities for us to play a role and provide value, and working with Keith Kerr and Adonis and Igor over at DLA to provide perhaps a seed to show how we can extend beyond this idea of having a technical person come in and write requirement, which doesn't work so well for them, and actually prove and show by means of a pilot how our approach really is going to be much more robust and allow for more sustainability. And the DLA is an example of where they really do need that type of support. So the idea is that we will pick an opportunity for something promising and provide an example, a little taste of our solution in their specific organizational context. We're hoping by doing that, we kind of pry the lid open for how other types of agencies within DoD can see the value of our approach. And if we do that, then we can grow into other areas. Since we have a very, very large footprint across the DoD, being able to understand how we can provide some kind of support in that area is really nice, because most of you guys out there, may see opportunities in the DoD space where once you see an example of what we can do, it may open up new opportunities for us to provide value. And that would be absolutely wonderful for us on the practice group. So I hope I answered that question well. And if not, please submit it again. Unless there's any other questions, I'll move on. Yes.
I do have a question for you. So a question came in, and it is, what is the comprehensive, robust, repeatable, and teachable technique we use?
What is an example of that? Is that what?
What is the comprehensive? I think they want some more information about the technique itself. And if the question needs clarified, please feel free to submit it again for clarification.
Yeah, actually, it really describes all of our techniques, or for most of them, definitely. There's some that are used for a very specific purpose. But really, a lot of our techniques are meant to be that way. They're designed to be comprehensive, they're designed to be robust, and they're designed to be repeatable and teachable for a very, very good reason. If we're going to go into a team of 10 people, into a large, complex organization like the Defense Logistics Agency or like the Department of Navy or something like that, everybody has to be able to do the same type of technique. So a good example of that would be one that I think I may touch on a little later, but is the way we handle the scoping of VA. That technique was using a model to be able to develop a solution context diagram. While the name sounds pretty fancy, it is really a one-page encapsulation of the scope of the change that we want to undertake. And it allows everybody to look at a visual model and say, what exactly are we trying to do to provide value to the organization? How does this align to our organizational goals? How do we know when the change is complete and it's successful? We don't do that often in the organizations we work in. So having that the consensus around that point is very important. Understanding the different types of stakeholders and the types of requirements information that we're going to need for them is also critical, and that's also on this particular technique. And understanding who benefits from the final solution and how they'll benefit is shown on the resulting diagram. The systems that might be impacted, the risks, and what is out of scope are also depicted. It's one technique. It obviously takes a little practice to get it right. But when you do it right, then somebody else within RG could take a look at it and say, hey, that's a solution context diagram, and with this quick guide that associates it, I can be able to understand exactly what the scope of the problem is, even if I don't know a dang thing about the Department of the Army or what they're trying to do here. I can read this particular model and get a general understanding about what they're trying to do. And so that then meets the criteria of something that is comprehensive, it is repeatable, it's robust because it covers a lot of different areas, and it's teachable. We can provide that on to somebody else to do, and they can be able to pick up the same technique we're doing. And that kind of mantra, and that's just one example. In the VA, we have almost 100 different quick guides that we have developed for that particular client, all of them with that same type of mantra that supports techniques in place. Do you need to know 100 different types of quick guides in order to do the job? Absolutely not. But if you are able to work in a particular area and help out, we can teach you very quickly about how to do it so that you will understand exactly what's going on. Excellent question, very insightful. Must have been a business analysis or a person that did that. Any other questions?
Nope. Not at this time.
Good, I like it. So moving along to the commercial markets, and this is, again, when RG made the acquisition of Green Evans Associates. This was an area that they really primarily focused on. So what we did now is we're really trying to apply the business analysis approach on different projects. One is Mass Mutual. Folks may not have heard about Mass Mutual Financial Group as much as maybe some of the other areas, but frankly, Neil Pineda and the team there has been working very actively for a number of years in a very nice environment where we came in underneath a management consulting group and was able to execute in a way that they weren't really. And we're working in a couple of different parts of their organization. So while they've restructured, we stayed involved because they understood the value proposition why. And also at American Fidelity Insurance, and in that area, again, Mark Barnett and team are really working through the second phase of the core systems transformation solution. And the relationship there is very strong, as I indicated before. We're really hoping that American Fidelity is going to be a wonderful reference account as we pursue our target market, which is mid-tier insurance organizations. So knowing that there's somebody in their peer group that's been able to make business analysis and really the ABA solution come alive along with the core systems transformation effort, then is a very, very valuable thing and something that will hopefully open up more doors for us, which leads to the opportunity part, and that's in support of our architecture business analysis effort and other types of solutions where RG's strength can be demonstrated. We can quantify that value and show that our solution truly is best in class. And then for other mid-tier organizations, specifically insurance, who may be modernizing legacy systems, the idea of Y2K legacy systems beginning to come into an area where they need to be reevaluated is a focus that we're looking at, and obviously getting the requirements about how the system works in order to make the changes intelligently is critical use of our skills. It fits very nicely with what these different organizations are facing. Okay. Next on our list is support for the Performance Institute clients, and we really have three different areas there. We're working with Diane and team to be able to address that. And the three areas that we're working in, we have an introduction with the CMS group about in being able to present exactly the value that we can provide, or at least listen to what they need, see whether we can provide support. And this is a great opportunity for us to be able to help support some of the different things that PI is doing in terms of areas of thought leadership. So we're very privileged to be able to help work with Diane and team to make that happen. The Government Performance Summit is a very good opportunity to present our Managing for Results story and to other agencies that are also looking to be able to do something similar. And then it'll be a chance for our value proposition to be at least introduced to folks who are attending. And finally, we have been doing, and we continue to do, Performance Institute Business Analysis class. We have two classes that are going to be there in 2015. And Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's something that is available to all of the different RGers who get manager support on that and the sign-off to be able to attend these classes. And it's a foundational class, so it gives you a good start to the business analysis. Certainly the opportunity is to be able to work with a lot of these great networks that PI has established and be able to help empower their subject matter expertise and thought leadership. So if we are able to take their strategic practices, which we are learning more about every day, and be able to provide support from a requirements perspective and business analysis perspective, it seems like a perfect way to open some doors. So moving on, again, Lindsay, stop me if there's some key questions here, but we'll move into the idea of employee development support. And the two areas really that we're working in here is to be able to work with recruiting. The idea is that we're working with the folks in HR, Tony and Chris, to be able to help the good acquisition of resources and have that as a repeatable approach that we can do to get the mindset and the types of people that we need for the different types of projects. So we're looking at ideas of screening mechanisms, ways to be able to capture people that we're looking for, to leverage a T-type of program to provide candidates. We have very, very good success with the folks who have come in and have done business analysis activities and have appreciated their help. So that has been a very good mechanism for us. And then identifying good internal projects that allow us to be able to get ahead of potential demand. Now, in that case, we also have a lot of folks who have been interested and have done other types of work for RG. And it is not to say that we aren't excited and thrilled if you're interested in business analysis. We've had several folks come over who've gotten involved and we'd love to have them. We provide the types of skills that are necessary so that you're able to participate in. So if you're very interested, contact one of the three of us and we'll get you on board. Always love doing that, and that's our first order of business, is to be able to look within our own organization and make sure we leverage the folks that are interested. That supports our mobility effort underway at RG. So the idea of competency development is that we're successfully building our first certification course. We actually completed it. Carol Drew did a wonderful job of getting that up, and it looks like we will have five resources sit for the exam before July 1. So the idea of us having two CVAS may change dramatically as a result of some of the different people who have gone through her course. And based on lesson learned from that course and some of the different demands that we have for the course, which we're seeing more demand from folks who are out there, a second course is proposed for the third quarter of the year. So we have another chance for folks to be able to become certified. Practice is working to support retooling of existing resources. I just touched on that before, so that they're interested and have got the mindset for business analysis, and it does take kind of a specific kind of way of thinking sometimes, a little bit different than what folks might be used to. We would love to have you. It'd be fantastic to have everybody involved in learning some of the things about business analysis, boosting that number for talent that we saw earlier up to the level that we need to have it as an organization. General competency is being updated based on the business analysis body of knowledge, which just released version 3. So we want to stay on top of that as being, and so that we keep ourselves in the right quadrant for our market. And we're working through that as it's being released, and we've been involved with it before it was released, actually, in getting a lot of the information. And finally, our breadth of expertise with BA tools is being expanded through the use of those tools on current project. Chris touched on this a little bit yesterday, but we use Enterprise Architect, which is something by Spark Systems. But our skills are not limited to that. We work with System Architect, which is IBM. We work with a couple other types of tools that are out there, including Blueprint, Top Team, and other types of management tools, JIRA, and other types of tools that hold some types of requirements information. We use it for the different types and aspects of the work that we do. So our knowledge is not necessarily tied to one particular tool, although we will probably want to try and stick with one tool as a default to make it a little bit easier for folks to ramp up. One area of opportunity, and we're coming up to five minutes till the hour, so I'll move through this a little bit, but it's worth touching on the idea that we are optimizing our service set. We currently have probably way too many different types of services out there for both. We're moving from a current level, which is quite a few, to the area in green, which is a more consolidated set. There's fewer that are more profitable, really, for us, and are more closely aligned to RG's strategy and our solutions. We're also, just touch on this, we're trying to put together a platform as a service because we have all of this quick guides and all of this training information. We want to try and be able to organize it in a way that makes it easier for us to be able to get the competency and best practices we need to provide good, high-quality business analysis support. And we're working actively to get that in place now, and we'll hit that a little bit harder here coming up in the second or third quarter. Quick review of our annual timeline, and I made this somewhat simplistic. We do have several different brown bags, and Lindsay will be announcing a lot of those. I hope you're able to attend. Some of them are very, very interesting and touch on some of the work that we're doing in a much more detailed way than I can present here. But in general, what we're really doing is we've had one CDAP prep course. We're looking, as I mentioned before, to proposing another one in the third quarter. And we have those PI, Foundations of Business Analysis, that are happening in the center. So that's the people part of our work. The processes, we're working with recruitment to be able to help support that and be able to be a bit more agile in the way we handle that effort. And that's ongoing right now. And Chris has been very diligent about trying to keep us on task there. We're looking at a coaching and mentoring program that is in support of what Tony has pushed out at the RG level, but also helps us allow to provide coaching and mentoring around business analysis, because there's often a lot of questions about how we would apply it in a particular situation. So that's a process we're working to look to put in place. And then overall competency development, how you actually begin to grow your competency from the basics in business analysis to very highly refined techniques that take a little bit of experience and effort to do, and what that might look like. This is the process component. We talked a little bit about the technology in terms of providing a platform for support of the practice, and that is now available to us a little bit more with Synergy 2.0 release. And finally, the organization, this idea of we're integrating with other practices, supporting them, and learning about them is critical for our success, we feel, because requirements kind of fits into a lot of the different types of categories, and knowing how we can leverage the expertise is really going to help us be more successful at what we do. So that's more of an ongoing thing. So that's a review of the annual timeline. And then finally, the risks and mitigation, which I highlighted as well, to risk. And it's really, we really have 4 different areas, and I'll touch on those. One is this idea of hiring sufficient resources to meet our client demand. What we've got is we have the potential to need a lot of business analysts. So how are we going to meet that demand quickly and effectively? That's a risk for us. And we're trying to work with the T program. We're trying to work with the talent baseline that we showed at the very beginning for the current RG resources who are interested in learning more about the practice and participating in it. And we're also working with some of the different executive directors in their update sessions to be able to kind of get an idea as to what might be coming down the pike. Another risk is generating enough demand so that the hiring resources is to hire resources. And frankly, this kind of gets the eggs in one basket. We want to try and make sure that we have a wide variety of different opportunities for us to have business analysis solutions in, and that allows us then to be able to grow our base of practitioners in a smooth way and provide the mobility, frankly, so that they get other experiences and opportunities, which we think makes them better at what they do. So being able to make sure that we work with the different folks to be able to get that demand is very, very important to us. Supporting the and keeping the ongoing BA resources current is always a challenge, and that's including the fact that discipline is very, very rapidly changing and rapidly growing, which means that we, to stay on top of it, we have to coach, we have to mentor, we have to have ongoing training in brown bags, and certainly the certification process is something that we need to keep pushing forward on. And then this last thing is the BA approach consistency. And that's what we touched on earlier, and one of the questioners wisely had asked a question about, and that is making sure that the way we do things at RG, this consistent approach, is something that we have made easy for every one of you guys who are interested in working. Even if you aren't going to be a business analyst, if you want to know enough about the technique to help you out in what you're trying to do, we want to make that easy for you to be able to do that. So that is an ongoing effort to be able to address that particular risk of making sure that we deliver business analysis practices consistent and effective. So we're coming up at 55 minutes to the hour. So at that point, that concludes the presentation that I had going forward, and I can stay online for any questions that come through. And thank you all very, very much for the time.
All right, Doug, I have 3 questions ready to go if you're ready. So the first one, have we successfully sold BA-only projects or contracts, or are we injecting BA into existing projects?
I want to make sure I understand the question effectively or clearly. I think the answer to that one is both. I mean, what we are trying to do, an example of how we are doing it new was the case at VA, and it was the case at American Fidelity, and of course was the case at Mass Mutual. Where we're working to interject it on existing is becoming the case with DLA. That's an existing contract we're trying to do. But I think that to the questioner's point, we definitely want to work harder to do that with existing work that we have, because requirements is a part of most everything we do. So making sure that we have those opportunities, we think it opens the door for us to be able to please the client in a better way. So if the questioner does have a particular opportunity that they think that that could benefit from that, I'm all ears. It'd be great.
Great, thanks. Question number 2 is going back to the concept of visual requirements. Is that the same concept as a use case story in the software development world?
Yes. In fact, the use case story or prototyping is the case. So in that case, you can use a flow chart, which is a visual means to show behavior over time. And that flow chart is what we call an activity diagram, a process diagram. That's one visual mechanism, but that's not the only one. Based on what we may need, somebody just may want to see a storyboard of different interfaces. And that storyboard is something that we can do as well. So you can see how the user navigates a screen, for instance, or some other type of technology. And that's also a very highly effective visual mechanism. Nice thing about our approach is we can do either of those, and they actually can work together to be able to tell the story and the narrative to two different audiences to help them do their job. So that's a really good question, and yes, we do that in two different ways.
Thank you. The last question I have in front of me, what sort of speaking engagements do you envision for generating demand?
So we really talked about, so generating demand is the key part, I think, of that question. So a lot of our speaking engagements are building our brand, which implicitly would hopefully generate demand, right? So we'd have the ability to talk. People get very interested. They come up afterwards. They say, well, we really want to see whether we could do that with your company. In truth, what we want to do is at certain types of industry conferences, whether they be for insurance, whether they be for different types of segments of the government, are probably more effective for us to be able to generate that demand, because we're really speaking to a very specific need in a specific vertical versus talking to a whole bunch of other business analysis practitioners who may be attending a conference. So the second one is more vital to us in terms of generating demand. One last point on that is the idea that the best possible situation we can have is our own clients going to these different conferences and talking about how working with RG is a wonderful thing. We have one golden opportunity on the list here this coming year. We're hoping to be able to build that more in the future.
Great. I have not had any other questions come in.
Great. Well, that puts us right at the top of the hour. So unless anything else comes through, again, thank you to everybody who's still on the call.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. This session is recorded, so it'll be posted on Synergy by the end of the week.
Okay. Thanks, Lindsay.
Okay. Thanks. Everyone have a good day. Bye-bye.